How did we get here? Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg is the main event of UFC 301. Yeah, you heard me right. A flyweight title fight is headlining a pay-per-view. I thought it was common knowledge that a flyweight title fight should never headline a pay-per-view. I thought that we had made it clear that a flyweight title fight should be a co-main event, perhaps a main event of a fight night. But it seems like the sport that I love is falling off. So how did we get here? Not only is a flyweight title fight headlining a $85 pay-per-view, how does Michael Scott, Bedtime MMA, who only has 3 UFC fights and has not fought anyone in the top 10, get a title shot? What is happening to the sport that I love? Now, I'm gonna be honest. I'm actually excited for this fight. And I'm excited for one reason. Steve Erceg, Bedtime MMA, Michael Scott. Before I even began to take notes for this video, I wanted to become more familiar with Steve Erceg. Like, who is this guy? I had never seen an interview from this guy. I had seen his fights in the UFC. But I don't really know who he is. I know he's a popular MMA YouTuber and he has 3 fights in the UFC. I know he's a technical boxer who fights very well on the outside. Seems like he has solid grappling and BJJ skills based on those 3 UFC fights. But I was still under the impression that this guy is a striker and that this was a striker versus grappler matchup. But I decided to go watch some of Erceg fights before he came into the UFC. And to my surprise, I had realized that I was so wrong about Steve Erceg. Steve Erceg is not a striker. This guy's a grappler, but primarily he's a mixed martial artist. And when I had this switch, when I was watching his fights in the Eternal MMA promotion, when I changed my view on Steve Erceg, is when I actually became very, very excited for this fight. Now, the flyweight division is not in a good place, right? Brandon Royval just fought Alexandre Pantoja. The fight wasn't all that competitive. Brandon Moreno fought Brandon Royval. I thought, okay, if Brandon Moreno has an impressive performance over Brandon Royval, he could get that third fight with Alexandre Pantoja, especially since that second fight. I know they've had, especially since that second fight was very entertaining. Now, I know they fought a couple times. I know they fought in The Ultimate Fighter. But, like I said, I thought the second fight with Brandon Moreno was very fun, was very entertaining. So I wasn't going to be surprised if Brandon Moreno got the title shot. Amir Albazi was injured. Kai Kara France has been inactive. Mateus Nicolau is fighting Alex Perez. Manel Cap has missed weight. And then Mohamed Mokaev, who a lot of people thought was going to get the title shot, put a terrible performance, a lackluster performance over Alex Perez. And with all that being said, yes, Michael Scott, Steve Erceg, does not deserve a title shot. But make no mistake, he's the rightful contender. So now that I've established that I believe that Steve Erceg is the rightful contender, even though he's not the guy that, I don't think there's a flyweight right now that truly deserves a title shot. Like I said, I do believe that Steve Erceg is the rightful contender. And how do I see this matchup playing out, right? I learned that Steve Erceg is a lot more well-rounded. Pantoja has been a very dominant champion. So how is this fight going to play out? Now, I think Steve Erceg is the better technical boxer. I think he's the better boxer. I think he lands the cleaner shots. I think he has the better shot selection. I think he's the more composed fighter on the feet. Pantoja, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. He's very reckless. He's very aggressive, but he's also very powerful in the pocket, which I think is going to be dangerous in this matchup because I've seen Steve Erceg get clipped in the pocket by guys like Costa. I think that he is kind of there to be hit in the pocket, and I think Pantoja does have the style to make it dangerous for Steve Erceg in the pocket, but at range, from distance, I think Steve Erceg is the superior striker. I could see him frustrating Pantoja. I could see him outclassing Pantoja, landing head kicks, landing that jab, landing that right hand, touching him, and then boom, landing that right hand that stuns Pantoja. I could see him countering Pantoja because we know that Pantoja is going to be pressuring. We know he's going to be moving forward. And I think that if Steve Erceg is able to earn the respect of Pantoja on the feet, like let's say he counters him with a right hand or a left hook, I think Pantoja is going to be more hesitant to shoot for takedowns, to walk this guy down on the feet. And because of that, I could see Steve Erceg winning by a decision, winning by a knockout. And I am picking Steve Erceg to win this fight, guys. I believe that Steve Erceg is going to win this fight. I like the fact that Steve Erceg is going into this matchup with no pressure because he's a number 10 ranked guy. Not a lot of people know who Steve Erceg is. If you watch Steve Erceg, maybe you've only watched like a highlight of him knocking out Matt Schnell. So he's very unassuming. Not a lot of fighters know about him either. He's been in the UFC for less than a year. He only has 3 fights in the UFC. So this guy is truly an underdog. He really has nothing to lose. And I think he's good enough on the feet. I think he's good enough on the ground to beat Pantoja because we've seen Pantoja when he tends to struggle. The one thing that before I get into my point, the one thing I do respect about Alexandre Pantoja is that this guy finds a way to win. Like Pantoja is not afraid to stink up a fight. He's not afraid to make a fight boring. He's not afraid of the boos. If he needs to stall a fight because he's getting outstruck on the feet and all he's going to do is control you like he did against Brandon Moreno in that rematch, he's going to do so and he ends up winning. As pretty as the fight might not be, as not entertaining, as boring as the fight might turn out to be, Pantoja always finds a way to win, which makes him very dangerous in this matchup. However, I think with Steve Erceg, I don't think he's going to be able to just control Steve Erceg and just keep him there. I think Steve Erceg has really good scrambles. He's really good at getting back to his feet. I like his striking style. I like that he's very composed on the feet. And I think he's going to be able to neutralize the chaos. I really do feel that he's going to be able to neutralize the chaotic style of Pantoja. We know Pantoja is going to be throwing nasty right overhands. And I think that Steve Erceg, he's so good at cutting angles. He's so good at moving laterally as well that I think he could capitalize on some of Pantoja's recklessness. I really do believe so. And I'm picking Steve Erceg to win this fight. I'm going with the underdog. I'm going with Bedtime MMA. We got to support our MMA YouTube community. And I think he could win this fight. Like, I truly believe so. I'm not just picking Steve Erceg because I want to pick an underdog. I think Pantoja's good, man. I think the guy has great cardio. Like I said, I love that Pantoja finds a way to win. He has nasty Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's very good at finding your back. He's very good at finding outside trips and taking you down to the mat with him. We saw that against Brandon Royval, where Brandon Royval doesn't really have the power. He doesn't really have that sneaky power that Steve Erceg has. He doesn't really have like the technical boxing of Steve Erceg. And even though Brandon Royval, he's more of a volume striker and he's very chaotic as well, I don't think that style is good enough to beat someone like Pantoja. While I think Steve Erceg has a better style to face Pantoja. I also believe that Steve Erceg is going to be able to capitalize in ways that Brandon Moreno was not able to capitalize in his rematch. While Brandon Moreno was outstriking Alexandre Pantoja, we saw that in that second round. The reason why Pantoja had so much success in that fight was because Pantoja wasn't really afraid of the power. He wasn't really afraid of Moreno's power. He was able to walk down through Moreno's shots. And like I said, even though Moreno was landing the cleaner shots, because Pantoja also has a lot of power, and we saw that he was able to drop Brandon Moreno in that first round and land ground and pound shots and control Brandon Moreno, he was able to have success, man. And I just feel like Pantoja is Brandon Moreno's kryptonite. And I feel like Steve Erceg, he's the hitman. He's the guy that was meant to do this job. I think he was the guy to beat Alexandre Pantoja. And even if Steve Erceg loses this fight, I'm willing to bet that this fight is going to be very competitive. I really do believe that this fight is going to be very competitive. I could see maybe Steve Erceg making a couple of mistakes. Maybe he gets controlled a little bit more than he needs to. Maybe he makes a mistake in one of the scrambles and he loses this fight by a decision. But I think after this fight, people are going to say like, man, Steve Erceg, he could have won this fight. Maybe, potentially down the line, they could get a rematch. But I'm going to take the risk here. I think Steve Erceg is going to pull the upset. I think he's the better striker on the feet. I like that he's a taller fighter. I like his technical boxing. I like that he's a great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. He's definitely not the better grappler in this matchup. I think Pantoja is better at controlling. I think he's better with his grappling. I think he's better at getting the bag. But Steve Erceg also has those skills in his back pocket. And I'm going with the underdog in this matchup, guys. I'm going with the underdog. Let me know what you guys think. Are you going with Steve Erceg? Are you going with Pantoja? I think Steve Erceg has all the tools to pull an upset. And I think he will, man. I think he will. I like the fact that he's not going into this fight with a lot of pressure. Pantoja has all the pressure. He has all the pressure because he's fighting in his home country. He's main eventing a pay-per-view. We saw how Brazilians react when their fighters lose. I mean, we saw that against Davidson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. We saw that with Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill. Brazilians don't like when their Brazilian fighters lose. And I think that the pressure is going to get to Pantoja. I think Steve Erceg, he's so unassuming. He's so low-key. He's such a, he's so subtle. Like, you look at Steve Erceg and you're like, I could kick that guy's ass. Like, there's no way that guy could kick my ass. But he's very skilled, man. He's very skilled. And I'm going with Steve Erceg, guys. So make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. And let me know who you think is going to win this fight. I think, I don't know if this video is going to get a lot of views because I don't really think people care that much about this fight. I really care about this fight, and I wanted to give you guys my prediction and breakdown. So make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.